I really didn't believe it. I was like, what are you talking about? And then as I thought about it, I got very, very frightened. And I clearly remember Andrew and I just both going, what, and being completely gobsmacked. Thought about, oh my God, we have 2 young kids. We were trying to conceive a 3rd child at that time. So it pretty much blew my top off emotionally. Well, I actually met Andrew outside of Los Angeles at what at the time was called sort of a singles weekend. I guess that was before all the online stuff. When I met him, I thought he would be a great match for one of my best friends at the time. So I left that weekend thinking, nice guy, probably not for me, but whatever. Long and the short of it is, we met again at a reunion of the people on that weekend. In the meantime, I had broken up with somebody, was dating other people. And the long and short of it is, he invited me to go out. We went out, and 6 months later, we were married. It went well. We went to Hawaii together on a trip. I was supposed to go with my mother to Hawaii, and instead I went with Andrew. And she was okay with it. And he proposed to me on top of a volcano. So it was very cool. It was very cool.
Amazing. And if you were to describe the two of you in the relationship from in the beginning, even, what were the different roles, like personalities, like opposites attract, or was it more of were very similar? What was that like?
Andrew from the get-go was very much more of an adventurer than I was. Not that I did, I liked to travel, but I hadn't done as much as I would have liked to, because that just wasn't my doing it on my own. And so I'd say it was more of not so much opposites attract, but more Andrew is a much more even tempered and even perspective on life than I was and still am. And I'm more of a kind of an up and down emotional relator than he is. And that's carried through our relationship and through the journey we've been on with his diagnoses as well. I've just learned to stay more even on a lot of things.
So you've already a decade into everything, life's good, and then he's not feeling great.
Well, actually, he was feeling fine, except he was having some nosebleeds. So like out of nowhere, he's very athletic. He and I were running half marathons, and he's pushing the kids in the little stroller, the jogger. And after a couple of nosebleeds, I said, you know what, why don't you just go to the doctor, let him look up your nose and see what's going on. And thought, well, we live in a place where the weather is dry, and it was just not, he wasn't having any other symptoms. He was exercising, sleeping well, hadn't gained or lost weight. So up until pretty much the second call from the doctor, there was a first call of, how are you feeling? I'm fine. The doctor said, really, it looks like you may be fighting some kind of an infection. Let's redo it in 10 days. At that point, I wasn't really concerned. When he went back for the second blood test, and then the doctor called and said, I think we need to do further testing. It was then that I was like, oh no, what's going on? So I wasn't really tipped off until then.
And you were talking about, even in the beginning, naturally you kind of have more of the high and the lows, right? So having to hear, oh, this is more serious than we initially thought, all the way into actually finding out Andrew has cancer, he has leukemia. Do you remember that moment?
Sure. Well, I can tell you from my own experience that I knew that my reaction, which was one of high anxiety And I would say, very close to being incapacitated emotionally. I went and got help. I went into counseling, and I guess this is by telling you this is advice, is like, if I felt that if I couldn't be there for Andrew and couldn't be there for the kids, and I couldn't keep it together, then I had to figure out how to get through this in some rational, functional way. And what it led to is I went into counseling. Andrew and I went into counseling together during the, we were figuring out what was the treatment, who was the right doctor, blah, 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 blah. And I went on to some anti-anxiety medication. And that's not for everybody. So that's not really advice. That's more, I knew that through talk therapy and through understanding my composition, I needed external help to stay even and rational about what our next steps needed to be. And to this day, that has helped me get through some of the other things that have come up along the way. So I'd say the advice is, if you're not dealing, if you're not on an even keel, it doesn't mean you can't feel it and that you're not going to be upset, but you have to figure out a way to be able to work with your partner or your loved one to make some rational decisions together.
I love what you're highlighting here, Esther, because, I think it is easy to, first of all, fade a little bit in the background. A lot of all the attention's going to this person. They're the patient. They're the one with cancer. You are just as much in this experience, and you have to be intentional. What I'm hearing from you is you have to be intentional about how you take care of yourself so that you can take care of other people, including your spouse or parent or whoever it is.
That's totally it. Is that if you, as a care, whether you're a care partner, you're the person, the main person with the patient, or you're just part of the support system, yet the patient is dealing with the patient's shock. But there are going to be things that a patient, they have to take care of themselves. And then they're going to be like in our situation, there were children that didn't understand what was going on. There was some measure of having to shield them from having them be upset, that you have to be present. And in order to do that, there's some people who are able to do that without outside assistance. And some just need that additional support for themselves. Get enough sleep, don't stop eating. If you need medication or you need counseling, you need to get them, do yoga, whatever it works to keep you balanced, because you're going to need it.
Getting through not just one, but two diagnoses. You were able to understand pretty quickly, though, I need some support myself.
Well, I think you have to put ego aside. It's like, I'm not, saying I'm strong enough to get through this on my own. Well, some people are, but you have to know you have to look inside and say, okay, this is not going to be the even road that we thought it was going to be, or that we hoped it would be. And there's nothing, and you have to keep your eye on the end goal. The end goal is for your loved one to get better, and for you to be there as fully as you can be to support them. And the only way you can do that is for you to be strong and centered as well. And there's nothing wrong. You have to know there's nothing wrong with having human weakness or human emotion. And you just have to figure out how you as an individual have to regulate that and get through it, because it's going to be a challenge for you in a similar way as it is to the patient, except it's not happening to you. It's the emotional part that you're both going through. One other thing I would say, I think looking back on it, it's also dealing with a sense of grief. When somebody dies, or when somebody gets very sick, even the people who are not sick but are watching something like that go on, there's a grieving process. And I think for a caregiver or a care partner, as I like to call it, there's a sense when somebody you love is diagnosed with something is going to disrupt their hopes and dreams in one way or another, it's going to disrupt yours. You have to kind of let yourself grieve a little bit. Say, okay, this isn't the hand I wanted to be dealt, but I'm going to have to deal with it along with my loved one. And so if I need some support in doing that, I need to go get it. Otherwise, I'm not going to be any help. And so some people, I think, can say, okay, this is what it is. Let's move on. Let's do it together. And for me, it was just I had to process the emotions and the fear. I mean, there was a fear as well. And so over time, I've learned to put certain feelings in boxes. I mean, we can go through all that. I think that's a skill that gets learned along the way, especially with something like a chronic cancer or a chronic disease, that you kind of worry when you have to worry, and otherwise kind of put it in the back of the closet. It's like, I'm not going to worry about this now.
I know you talked about some people with all of the different emotions and fear and anxiety can just deal with it and move on. And with others, there needs to be support, whether it's in the form of, again, counseling or some medication. But what did it look like? How did it manifest in your day to day?
Yeah, well, and this is just for me how this was, is that like being immobilized by, oh my God, this is something I'm not sure I know how to deal with. And oh my God, my dearest loved one could die from this. I didn't know what treatment was going to be like. When I would start to think about what could happen, I was looking at a man that looked very healthy to me, but I was told that at some point he's going to need treatment, that it's cancer. I mean, when somebody still says cancer, it's, you don't want this in your life, right? Um, for me, it was trouble getting to sleep at night, palpitations, my heart would race, crying, just, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to function, trying to keep it together for the kids and not frighten them. So there was a lot of just internal stomach ache, just not feeling good at all. And that was the stuff I felt like I had to get past. I had to figure out how to function normally. And there were certain things, counseling, medication for me, regular exercise helped. And also having conversations with other loved ones who were supportive, whether it was my mom, my brother, a best friend. So it was building what I needed to do was build that network for myself while Andrew was building his network. And sometimes they overlapped.
This is all happening, a lot of it, right as you're just trying to figure out the answers of the CLL, what would eventually be diagnosed as CLL. And that was 26 years ago. At what point, first of all, trying to understand the chronic versus the acute situation, I'm sure was also sort of an education process.
Right.
As a care partner, how did you and Andrew have these conversations about, okay, how much of it is going to be him deciding something, or are you helping, or are you researching more when he's emotionally not there? Like, what was that like?
Right. Andrew, by his own nature, was a journalist and wanted to know the answer to everything. And I'm a project manager by nature. So I'm a researcher in order to research on putting things in order. So in that sense, we work together. And one of the first things we knew we needed was, what the heck is this? Right? We're like, okay, they said it's some sort of a chronic cancer. Well, okay, what does that mean? And we were also told you probably aren't going to need treatment for a while. And so we're like, what? So we were confused. And so our way of together dealing with it is to try to get as much information about what were we dealing with. What is a chronic cancer? What was this cancer different from that cancer? And so we kind of, at that point, we were working together on it. And yeah, I think we went back and forth. I mean, Andrew is quite stoic. I mean, I don't mean that he doesn't feel things, but he's a pragmatist. He just sort of pushes through them. And so there were things that I just said, Andrew, you find out what we need to do and tell me what I need to do to support you. And in other cases, I said, you know what, I need to understand this, so I'm going to go and get the answers. So it was really teamwork.
Can you describe, the tools that you have developed to help, because it's been 26 years of two different cancers that you're a partner now on?
If you are not functioning well and feeling adrift and feeling anxious, don't be afraid to look for outside help. You're probably not going to get that from the patient because they're dealing with their own things. So you need to seek counseling, seek peers who will understand what's going on, family members, get support. And if you find that there's physiological things going on, sometimes for some people, whether it's medicine or marijuana or other supplement, acupuncture, exercise, yoga, meditation, any of the things that can help you feel centered and in control, in a sense, in control of your own emotions so you can think clearly is really important. I'd say the other thing, we were talking a little bit about compartmentalizing. Over time, what I found is when there were sort of good and bad milestones, but the milestones where, somebody needs treatment, my person needs treatment, or numbers are going in the wrong direction in blood tests. My tool has been, okay, is this something that I need to worry about right now? Or can I save my worrying for when there's something really drastic that warrants, pulling out all the stops and, okay, I'm going to worry, I'm going to have a good cry, I'm going to go back to a counselor, and we'll get through this. And I think that's the best way for me to describe the compartmentalization. And also the one other thing is living in the moment. At my darkest times, when I've just felt like, oh my God, I could see a potential train wreck coming, theoretically, I say, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to get hit by the train. So I'm here right now. My loved one is here right now. We need to live in this moment. And it's a practice skill, and I'm not always successful at it, but it's something to work on.
Just one last, message to the people out there who are care partners or part of a support system dealing with a newer diagnosis of any kind.
I would say to anyone who has to support somebody with a serious illness, you need to take care of yourself as well as you take care of the person that you love so much who's going through it. Because if you want to be there for them, you need to figure out how to stay stable, how to stay the course, and do what you need for yourself so that you're fully there to support the person that you love.